And of course, he's friends with his fiance and his friends and all his fiance's friends. And so not only does this poor schmo see that, you know, like his girlfriend sees that he's bought a ring. She says he's bought an Overstock.com. So he's got problems, right? So I loved some of the blog posts from around that time, but it was things like, you know, Facebook ruins Christmas. You know,
They just pulled this.
pull it up, yeah. So there you go. Yeah, did it say Facebook ruins Christmas? Yeah, I thought those were great, right? But you know what? Yeah, they kind of did. Like, you don't tell the world what I'm buying as gifts. And the fact that it came out in like November, they were just asking for trouble, right? Now, here's the thing. So this is where the two sides of my brain kick in. The marketer side goes, wow, what a great idea. We can share, we can get, you know, broader reach. We can tell people more about what's happening and encourage purchase behavior and you know, measure intent about how people are sharing and do all this great stuff that we think about every day. And then the part of me that, you know, is still kind of got a foot in that old world of being a content generator and being somebody who uses these tools and loves to, I'd be like, you gotta be kidding me. I don't want people to know stuff that I don't want them to know. I'll share anything that I want to share, but I want to be in control of that, right? I'll tweet about any crazy thing. I'll put pictures of my baby online. I do all kinds of stuff, right? A lot of you know that. I put a lot of pictures of my baby online. I go to Flickr. She's all over it. But I want to be in control of it, right? There's pictures that I don't put on Flickr. There's information that I don't share on Facebook. You know, so I want to make sure that I'm in control. Now, there's, to me, that sort of moment where you go, what's the line? And this is something that I've been struggling with myself in looking at, you know, sort of the marketing world. There's another piece of it for me too. And again, this kind of goes back to why I thought Beacon was a cool idea. To me, anything that's done in the online space or in the public space in general has to be about value. And one of the things that I wonder increasingly is, so take a step back. I studied radio and television here. And I was enamored of radio and television. I loved, you know, I'm a musician. I used to sit up to radio, you know, like CBC radio and the Dr. Demento show and rock radio in Toronto, Q107 and all kinds of stuff. You know, we used to watch, my sister and I used to watch hours and hours of TV and, you know, probably rotted our brains a little bit, but we talk too fast, so what's that sound right? I don't know. You know, I love media, and that was why I wanted to get into it. Media has been, as long as I've been alive, as long as most of us have been alive, ad-supported. And nobody's gone those ads. I mean, some people do, but the reality is we all put up with ads. We might flip the channel between them, but nobody has, you know, I've not yet seen anybody sign a petition of take commercials out of television shows, right? You know, Joseph Jaffe and other people can talk all they want about the death of interruption. Interruption is going to be around for a long time, right? The interruption model of, you know, and now your 2-minute break for commercials. In some form or another, yeah, we're moving towards, you know, having product placement. We didn't get paid for Nestle, but I'm drinking this. You know, those kinds of models are evolving and coming, but I think it's going to be a while that, you know, we're going to say there's going to be some form of brought to you by, right? So, and you know what, I never had a problem with that from the standpoint of that's how I get to enjoy all this cool content. Now, where's the line between I get to enjoy something cool and there's some value to me, and in exchange for that I give you my eyeballs or my mind for a minute to give me a marketing message, with now you're just being rude. Now you're just blasting too much crap in my face. And especially now that I'm in the marketing world, I kind of struggle with that. So I really want to throw it open and have you guys tell me what you think. Because on the one hand, we need advertising. At least as long as, you know, we're not independently wealthy and we need, you know, to create content, and a lot of us make our living. How many people here make their living directly off advertising, PR, some form of getting somebody's message out for either a company or an agency? Or so about almost half people are. Okay. How many people here work in an industry that's ad-supported, i.e. media, so a lot of the same people. How many people work in an industry that has nothing to do with advertising? So it's about 50-50. So, and I don't know if that's by choice. I mean, you know, if you work in, you know, healthcare or something like that, that's not what it's about. So, you know, but some people I know consciously avoid working in marketing-related media. So I would like to just throw it open and hear from some people in here what you guys think. Where's the line? Are we crossing the line? Does Beacon really cross the line? Probably yes, but like, does the other idea of Beacon, which is that we're actually able to tell people this stuff, does that cross the line? In general, you know, yeah.
Well, I'd like to start with like the survey you just did.
Mm-hmm.
unless people like just typing or recording themselves just for the fun of it and don't care about anybody seeing it, you're all in advertising now.
Good point. It's a great point, actually. And in fact, I did a music marketing podcast for a while that I'd stopped. But, you know, I was only in music. Thanks, Dave. My listeners over there. Actually, it's funny. Just a little aside about that. I did a thing where I did a number, one of those numbers you can call in and ask questions. And then at Podcasters Across Borders, I had 4 calls ever. I think I had 5 at the end, but it was 4 ever. And we got to Podcasters Across Borders, and I said something about trying to involve the larger community. And I said, I'll give you an example. 4 people have ever called into my show. Can you all put up your hands? And it was Dave, Chris Penn, Brian Person, and one other person. And so that's a whole fishbowl discussion for another session, I think, maybe tomorrow. But to your point, yeah, I was in music marketing because I was trying to promote my band. If you're, you know, there's lots of sessions here. People are kind of weird about marketing and promotion and stuff like that. But the sessions that we do around here that are things like get more listeners for your podcast, how's that not marketing, right? So that's a really good point. And so where's the line there? Like, any thoughts on that? Yeah.
Is it not so much how much you say it, but how you kind of blend it into your content? Because I know podcasters where it's not just, you don't take a commercial break, but maybe take a minute to mention the site that's sponsoring you or something that you're doing on the site.
Right. That's interesting too, because there's another one where I struggled. And how many people here listen to Joseph Jaffe? Jaffe Juice, or Process Sound, whatever he's calling it now. So Joseph is the guy who wrote Life After the 30-Second Spot and Join the Conversation, his new book. I haven't read it. Anyway, Joseph's an interesting guy because he's somewhat provocative in his way of doing things. So he did this whole thing where he did this iPhone for an episode, and he would basically offer to give someone an episode of his show to do kind of whatever they wanted with, in the context of it being, you know, about marketing and all the things that he talks about, if they buy him an iPhone. So, and that was straight up, like that was the deal, right? And it was kind of interesting, and he did actually, he got a couple actually, didn't he?
Yeah, he got 2.
Yeah. Hey, good on him, right? Now, it's funny, I actually called in Joseph and I said, you know, that's interesting, but to the point you just made, he could pull that off because he could then have these people on, and they could kind of talk about why they had bought the iPhone, what the marketing effort was, what they were trying to promote. It's a marketing podcast, right? So it's sort of circular, but it works because it's what he does. So I called him and I said, well, Joseph, this is cool, but if you're not talking about marketing, how can you do this? Like, is it then just either product placement or just straight sponsorship, or, you know, and the worst example of this is something called payola, which is the old school radio thing where people would buy plays, right? So, you know, to your point, you can integrate content, but at what point does that integrated content? Well, here's a great example. American Idol, right? How many people here watch Idol, Canadian or American or otherwise? It's hardly anybody in here. That's our CTV client would be angry. Okay, but if you watch the show, one of the things that you'll notice is the sometimes blatant, but often subtle product placements. So I saw a stat from, I want to say Nielsen or one of those kind of companies, from last year. In a season of American Idol, and I don't remember the exact number, but if someone want to take a ballpark guess at how many product placement impressions they tracked. It is. It was somewhere, I was stunned. It was somewhere in the area of 4,000. And I thought maybe a few hundred. 1,000. Now, I think they counted every time that you saw, you know, a frame of Paul or somebody holding up a Coke can or whatever it might be, right? But at what point does that just become more annoying than the commercial? Just throw me a goddamn commercial for 30 seconds. Don't lie to me and think that everybody in the program loves Coke and drives a Ford. Right?
Not Ford.
Is it Ford, though? That is not,
No, it's
Did anyone watch the Knight Rider movie? No. Now, see, I've got more people watch the Knight Rider movie than American Idol in here. Only a couple. I know you did. That was one of those shows we used to watch. It used to rot our brains, so we had to watch it. It was. It was like the longest. Yeah. My boss, Ted.
Don't forget that it was a Pontiac before.
And nobody called us on it when it was a
That
Pontiac.
was the funniest thing. But it wasn't. But I don't think Pontiac. I don't think.
Hell yeah, they
Did they? Did they
Hell
pay?
yeah.
Well, see, that's really interesting. See, but I never knew that. So there's a good example. It was a little subtler somehow, don't you think?
No.
You didn't think so?
So,
You don't think the old Knight Rider was subtler in the fact that it was a Trans Am? It was just Trans Am.
David Hasselhoff.
It was just
We're too young.
I don't mean no. Look. I don't mean the show was subtle. David Hasselhoff is like he's like one of the broadest actors in history. That's what I'm talking about.
Major marketing issue.
Yeah, but okay. So you don't think that was okay? Well, no, fair enough. So were there other examples? Like, was I just not paying attention all those years? Were there lots of examples? Give me some. See,
Other product placement?
yeah, like earlier than say 2000 when it started really to be a big thing.
I'm on the spot now.
No, because I'm a little surprised, and I'm gonna follow up on it. But I'm sure you're right.
Well, Blade Runner with Coca-Cola.
That's true. I know that one I knew. That's true.
Coca-Cola, Sony, Toshiba, they all advertise on Blade Runner. And that's a pretty great movie. How many people like Blade Runner? Probably half.
Yeah.
It was part of the idea, the advertising.
Yeah, that's part of it.
Yeah.
That doesn't make it any less painful.
Actually, that one's interesting, and another one like that was Demolition Man? Was that the Stallone movie that had Taco Bell?
Right.
Yeah.
Demolition Man, right? That one was interesting. Both of those have the same sort of bent, which is
Horrible.
but here's the interesting thing about both of those movies. If you think about how they did the advertising, they were kind of anti-advertising. Like Taco Bell kind of took the piss out of itself with that movie, if I remember right. It was like sort of funny that every goddamn restaurant was Taco Bell. They were kind of making fun of Taco Bell. That's
you know what
not.
the big story is? Was Huggies in
Raising
Arizona.
Oh,
Because
I didn't even know about that.
that was remember he had to go rob a store, and then he also grabbed a bag of Huggies. And that
Right.
was actually a purchase product placement.
That's okay. See, that's unsubtle, and I didn't catch it at the time. But now that you say that, it's like, what the fuck?
Well,
is that all about?
they said the word Huggies like 6-7 times. What was key in there was that
Right.
Huggies knew what they were getting into. They knew that the product was going to be used in the commission of a crime, and they still did it. So actually, that for that kind of advertising was quite brave.
Well, and again, like it kind of goes to the Taco Bell and to the placements in Blade Runner. They're almost the villains in the story, in a sense, right? Blade Runner, it's blatant. Like, the advertising, and it's funny now, because I've been to Tokyo, and it's like, oh yeah, there it is, right? And hell, tonight we can all go to Dundas Square, and we can see it there too, right? I mean, it's really, Ridley Scott was right about that anyway. But, there was something at least that you felt like, it's driving the story, and it's not fully, like, we love these things. It was almost, we're kind of weird about this. So that strikes me as a little different. But I get your point. There's been it all along, Mark.
Yeah. I think the less the product has to do with the podcast at hand, with the show at hand, with whatever it is, the more annoying it is.
Yeah.
If it has nothing to do with it, then it's damn annoying.
And I think that those examples, the Huggies one is a little more blatant, but I think those examples, he was trying to tell a story with the advertising in there. The fact that it was a Coke logo or a Pepsi logo, yeah, okay, well, let's sell that. But we got to have a logo there, right?
That's fair.
It did kind of drive the story.
Totally right.
Seinfeld was like that too, right? And I don't know. Does anybody know if people did like what was it, Milk Duds and like all those things that they used to talk about on Seinfeld? Did they pay for those?
Yeah.
Snapple, like did they pay for
Yeah.
those?
It got to the point where they were doing it to like almost as a joke. Like 30 Rock did the same thing
Right.
with Verizon,
Right.
Where they did it and they look into the camera and go, "Can we have our money now?" And so it's
Yeah.
Like Mike Myers did it in Wayne's World, where they were doing the obvious
yeah.
Doritos and Pepsi.
Yeah.
And Stephen Colbert, it's I mean everything's a joke anyway, but
Does it make it okay when it's that obvious? I think so. I think Beacon ran into trouble because they made it so damn difficult to unfollow you had to do it for every single site that you visited.
Yeah.
You had to check some obscure box that was hard to find to say, no, don't tell my friends about it on Pottery Barn.
Yeah.
No, don't tell my friends about it on Overstock. And they didn't have a generic opt-out. And I think that was the main problem.
and I think
the more obvious that people make the opt-in, opt-out. I am accepting this iPhone because of this.
totally.
I think I am doing this product placement. Here it is. Give me the cash. I think the more obvious you make it, the more acceptable it is to people, the more palatable it is to people.
the negative option thing, I think, is always kind of bullcrap anyway. But the you got to opt out of it everywhere. And from what I saw some of the screen caps. It's like, oh yeah, I could see how they would have missed that. I would have missed that. Like they were obfuscating.
Oh, yeah.
They were going out of their way to make it hard,
They were
right?
sneaky.
Oh yeah. You have your hand up for a while. Sorry.
I just said the whole Seinfeld and
Yeah.
it's almost come full circle. Because if you listen to the early radio shows from like the 30s and 40s,
Great example.
they didn't sit down and have a cup of coffee. It was like, would you like to sit down and have a cup of Jason Sanborn coffee? So,
Right.
and then they would tell you while they were pouring it how good Jason Sanborn was.
Okay, but this is actually kind of the point, and I'm glad you brought that up. One of the first projects I ever did here at Ryerson on the web was a broadcast history project, and we watched some of that old footage, and it's just so hokey, right? It's like, now we're going to smoke a Marlboro cigarette, like literally, and it was very broad again, so it was like that. It was almost as broad as David Hasselhoff. But they would, like, I think at some point they realized, this is corny. Like, let's make it a little subtler and a little more. And now we're kind of going back the other way.
I don't know if it was that, or if it was that advertisers wanted more control over the message, so they separated the.
Yeah, maybe. I think they had plenty of control over those messages. There was nothing in. Those were still like. They couldn't have been much more blatant, right? There was a great Simpsons thing where they're showing like a flashback to the Nixon Kennedy debate, and the candidates step away from the podium and do a Duff Beer ad. and it's almost that. It wasn't ever in politics, but it was almost that bad, right? It's pretty funny. Someone else, sorry, yeah.
I was just going to say that the benefit of this problem is that the answer is not a mystery. Consumers are not shy. They will tell us if we are fucking up. They will not use bacon, and they will no longer use real media. And they will, or on the other side of the spectrum, they will demand that Craigslist puts advertising into, or charges for house ads because it's raining the community. We have to make sites for our users, and our users are going to tell us when we go too far.
Okay, but that's interesting too, because I'm referencing. I'm not trying to name drop, but I'm thinking of other things that I've heard other podcasters and bloggers say. There was a little thing recently about Scrabulous. You guys know what Scrabulous is on Facebook? Back to Facebook again. So the Scrabulous thing, just briefly, was forget is it Mattel and Irwin? Hasbro. It depends on what region you're in, right? But anyway, the companies that own Scrabble put a cease and desist, sent a cease and desist orders to the guys who created Scrabulous. We can get into the whole thing of how it blew up in the blogosphere. Actually, there's a whole other Colin's doing a whole thing on PR and blogger sort of stuff. So I won't get into that part of it. But the part of the story that was interesting to me, or at least the sort of to your point, was something that Mitch Joel said, and it was he said, he was sort of defending the company's right to protect their trademark, which I totally get. But he said something that was funny, and I think somebody else called him out on it too. It might have been Jaffe, actually. Now I think about it, it's all just fishbowl, whatever. Another session. He said, well, what about the guys who developed it? Couldn't they call up the company and tell them? I get what you're saying, which is, we have the power now. We have the opportunity to tell them when they're effing up, right? But that doesn't help the poor guy whose fiance found out that he was bought a ring on Overstock.com.
But it's
so shouldn't there be some
change the policy from Facebook to have a very transparent? We're sorry that we did this.
And I get that, but does it is the marketing industry or the marketing drivers on Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg, he's a smart guy, but he's I think it's just he's so young and gung ho, and he's now a billionaire. He doesn't know what to do with it. But he it seems to me that company in particular is, and they're not the only ones, but they're indicative of let's just get out there and do stuff and sell stuff, and we can do anything with our users. We own our user relationships. We can throw any crap out there, and they can't, but they keep pushing the boundary, and they there's casualties. There's the guy who. And that's the thing that I worry about. Is shouldn't we think about the casualties before we do these things from a marketer's perspective?
But don't forget that Zuckerberg's got how many millions of dollars of VC financing.
Yeah.
And he's got.
I get it.
He's got the VCs behind him saying, "Okay, revenues now."
I totally get it.
So he's pushing. He's getting the push to be aggressive.
Right, and I get that. But at the end of the day, you think, well, clearly, Beacon has blown up in their face, if they had just thought about it a little bit first, you know, maybe before Christmas everybody doesn't want, like, if they, you know what, if they had done it the way they said they were going to do it, I think it would have been a really cool feature. Now they've shot themselves in the foot. Now they can't reinstitute that feature in any form because people are going, oh, Beacon. I bet it'll come back subtly different with another name and more the way it should have been. When I saw Beacon, when I saw Facebook pages and those things, I thought this is a great idea. And the reason I thought it was a great idea is because in my mind it meant, oh, okay, you've got to now, and this is where it gets to kind of the user control part. You've got to convince me that there's value to me putting that in my feed to other people. Like, for instance, the way I use Twitter is I put articles and links all the time in Twitter to other people's content mostly. And because I think that's valuable to my community. If I thought it was valuable to my community to know that there's a great deal on Overstock.com, damn right I'm going to put it in my feed. I share shit like that on my feeds all the time. But Eden's not here. Eden's Bodak. She's got a whole Twitter feed that's just bargains. Bargainista, right? Awesome. And think about it if you're a marketer. That's great. But you know why? Because the stuff's of value. The stuff's, you know, of value to her community, and it's self-selected, and the people who are getting it are selected, that they want to get that feed. So I think that there's something, before you just kind of throw things at people, I don't know. Maybe you're right. Maybe it's like we have the control. It's all good.
I think you can learn from other people's mistakes, though. Let's not do what Facebook did with Beacon.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely.
I think that's the point. Is not to learn, not to do what Facebook did, but I think Beacon completely killed Facebook's momentum. Like, I think Facebook is on its way down now, probably because of Beacon. I think that was there were various issues, but I think that was the crescendo for them.
I think, well, that may or may not be true. I think in the sort of marketing world and or podosphere, podosphere, blogsphere, we overemphasize because most people still don't really know what happened with Beacon. But I get it. I kind of agree. You have one of your...
Mitch Sewell was the same. The issue with Scrabblers was that they were trying to make money off of that.
Oh no, and I got Mitch's point, but the thing that I object to a little bit was the idea that these guys should have found the guys in the company, and I think it was Jaffe that called them out and said, "Who do you call it these companies? Really? Like, is that really?"
EA owned the rights. EA owned the digital rights to make.
No, I'm not defending those guys at all.
No, I'm just saying that someone already owned the rights. It's like you're creating a product that's already owned by someone.
No, and I get all that, but the thing that Mitch said was these guys should have proactively looked it up with the company. And it's like, yeah, you can't count on that. Like that's a nice idea, Mitch, but and if he's here, I'd say it to him, and I'm not calling him out, but Mitch, if you're watching,
What it comes down to is
he's gonna call me.
You have to respect your audience, and this is where Facebook was taking the advertiser side over their audience.
Yes.
And as podcasters, as creators, content creators, everyone in this room is probably in a better position to know where that line is, where they stopped respecting their audience, and where they're more, just using their audience as a leverage for money.
Yeah. Respect, to me, it's all about respect and value, and I've always said that, and it's 100%, yeah.
Well, I think one thing that I think your point, Robert, illustrates that's kind of a general principle is there's two sides to the argument. There's like, especially on Facebook, there's the Facebook terms of service. So what you've agreed to without reading, that they can legally do with your content and all of that. And then there's, the tacit or implied contract that you have with Facebook, which is, I own my data, I own my circle of friends, but according to the terms of service, they're well in their rights because of all the rights you've signed away on joining Facebook to do all this stuff, but at the same time, they're in total violation of the implied contract that a reasonable person would have with Facebook. So I think understanding your audience and understanding what their expectations are in terms of what they've done, recognizing no one ever reads the terms of service, especially geeks, because we're joining 10 things a day and don't have the time.
And they count on you not. I think increasingly, they count on you not reading the terms of service so that later on they can come back and go, but you signed it. It's here in paragraph 47.3, whatever. And I think that's where it's disingenuous. And I agree with everything. I think this is where that respect thing comes back. Can't somebody craft terms of service that we could actually read if we're not lawyers? Come on, really? Please?
Yeah.
But I think that it's like this discussion was had about 2 months ago on Seismic when Seismic was talking about going, I forget what it's called. But they're talking about the terms of service and how the British politician got 5,000 members on 5,000 followers on Facebook, and Facebook decided he wasn't a real person, and they deleted his account. And the discussion on Seismic went along the lines that, well, Facebook actually doesn't have the right to say that you have to be a person. You can be. It's legally. You're legally allowed to be an alias to represent yourself as another person and whatnot. But I'm just saying that the terms of service don't actually fit within normal legal agreements anyway. And just for them to be able to just turn you off, like your whole market and brand, without even talking. This guy had to call back and say, I am this guy. And people had to call into Facebook and say, this is the guy. He is the real guy. And if you spend all this money developing your own brand and stuff, that could cost you millions of dollars, right? They have to live by the law of the land. They can't live by the law of Mark Zuckerberg.
I was just going to say that, and actually it was funny because I think it was Jeremiah Ouyang who's got a great blog. It's Web Strategist, and he posted something about that. I think it was actually Twitter, and he said something about terms of services, and I actually commented back and said, I'm waiting for like something to get ruled unconstitutional in the United States in a terms of service because they just go way the freak over the line. And it's like, you can't do that. Are you out of your minds? So I'm waiting for some crazy legal constitutional challenge to take down one of these huge terms of service. But they're again, it's like the Beacon thing. They're obfuscating, they're hiding behind their legal language, and that's not respect to me. And that's where I get, again, coming in from a marketer standpoint, I'm like, I don't want to treat people that way.
Just because they put it in a contract doesn't mean it's contractually binding.
You can't contract. I know this is true in Canada. I think it's true in the U.S. You can't contractually agree to something that's illegal, right? So if it's not against the law, you can't legally. It's not a legally binding contract, right?
Still have to litigate it, and that costs money.
Absolutely.
Therefore, it means they can enforce
Absolutely right. Well, all kinds of stuff that people put in, policies in fucking amusement parks and stuff like that, right? Where they say, you can't hold us liable if the roller coaster falls apart and sort of stuff that's on the back of your ticket. It's like, that's actually not legal for them to do that, but you'd have to fight them. It's a good point, so we're a little off there. Yeah.
Right. They're not enforceable, but they are just meant to protect the company and to keep a slew of lawsuits from coming in.
Again, I get why it's there, but it's can't we all just get along? Can't we have respect? And that's where I get frustrated because I think, we're protected. That's the answer, right? Oh, well, it's okay. We can do that. We're protected. Is that the right answer?
You walk with your feet. I mean, like people, you can't. You vote with your feet. You can't. You can't forget that the internet, fundamentally, every single one of these sites is just a domain name with some stuff behind it. It could be reputation behind it, it could be a bunch of service behind it, resources behind it. It could be just one person with a really compelling story.
Yeah.
And we as both producers and consumers, but let's take it from the consumer side.
Mm-hmm.
You have the right to just go somewhere else. Like you don't like this bar or nightclub or restaurant, you can just go to the one down the street. And I think that the Mark Zuckerbergs and stuff. They have to realize that. I mean, there are alternatives. There's MySpace, which is an alternative.
Yeah. No, sort of. But
and there are tons of services that we.
I think Scott has something to say about that. Yeah.
Like I disagree because to be competitive in today's world, there's a certain number of things that you have to do and a certain number of things that you have to be involved with. And if Facebook and Twitter and Seismic and all these other companies are cutting edge things where you have to be, you have to blindly go in and accept those terms of service.
We're collectively giving.
Like even with banks, I mean, you have to have a credit card, you have to have all that stuff.
But if you look back in history, in the short history of the internet, they mentioned a lot of people who analyze these sites and stuff. They mentioned GeoCities, which is a walled garden, which a lot of people invested a ton of time in to make personal web pages. GeoCities allowed you to create the first, instance of a profile with some type of community, and a ton of people, early adopters, invested a ton of time to develop their presence online using those tools, and that doesn't even exist anymore. It's gone. It's so don't. This is just the beginning. Don't for one second think that these guys have a lock on anything. Just within their small sphere, you have competition with. You can use Ning. You can create your own Facebook if you want to. It's not. And if you have a compelling story, if you have a compelling community, you can create your you know, for whatever you're doing, like say you knit, you can just create your own Facebook for knitting.
To your point, though, like the shell, it's just a shell, right? So Facebook's just a shell, and we are the content of Facebook. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you can just pull up Facebook and walk away. There is no competitor to Facebook, hands down. I'm sorry, I don't agree with it. There's no competitor to Facebook. MySpace is not a competition to Facebook. It's a different thing. It's a different way of networking. And although the amoebas of, like, you know, the early BBS systems with First Class may evolve into GeoCities, may evolve into Blogger, may evolve into social networking, it's still, and, you know, Friendster, and there's a bunch of stuff that happened between you. Zuckerberg invented Am I Hard or Not, too. Like, that guy's been connected for a long time. And so when you look at all those different things, you go, look, you know what, I can't just walk out of Facebook, to your point. You can't walk out of Facebook and expect to have any credibility in this space. Yeah. You have to be there. Yeah. So if Facebook has the ultimate nuclear erase button, that's not cool. That's not cool, especially if you're operating within the legal guidelines, which I think is your point, right? So I'm going to back you up on that. At the end of the day, you should be allowed to have 5,000 friends. You should be allowed to have 50,000 friends. Shit, if you're Obama, you can have 1 million friends right now. You know what I mean? Because I'd be his friend. But that doesn't mean that Facebook should have power over me.
Frank's waiting.
It's their site.
It's your restaurant.
It's your restaurant. You know, within
I'm going to defend Facebook.
You can make bad food.
That's true.
You can make
Facebook, okay? Have you ever seen what happens when somebody loses their profile? Flip it. It's really important to a lot of people. And if you don't like it, of course, you can always leave. You haven't paid a dime for it. From my perspective, the advertising so far on Facebook is pretty unobtrusive. They're not hitting over the head. They're really good on privacy, as far as I'm concerned. Censorship, I don't see major problems with groups and that. They're pretty freewheeling about what they allow, so I'm against censorship. And the stuff that I don't see, I wouldn't want on there anyway. So I think it's pretty good. And we're holding it up to a very high standard. There is no competition in my mind, and that's a bit troubling. But I think you're getting tremendous value for a lot of the people in this room. It's an accelerant to what you want to achieve in your work lives and your personal lives. So first, I definitely don't think it's dying, for sure. I'm sure there will be competition. But, and I don't like the whole terms of service stuff either, but overall, I think you have to give them credit. The interface is phenomenal. It's unbelievably sticky. And just judging by what people do when they lose their spot there, it's really important. Yep. So I'm not saying don't fight for a better. I'm not saying don't fight screw-ups like the Beacon thing, or the terms of service, or not supporting competition. But at the same time, it's not too bad.
I think you guys are. By the way, that was a great podcast moment because I just sat down and you guys were going. That was my favorite moment of the weekend so far. I think everything you said is right on, Frank. Your point is well taken, which is it's your restaurant. You can serve shitty food if you want, but at the same time, if you respect your customers, you're not going to pee in their food, right? Like, I mean, you can, but it's not a smart thing to do. And I think this is kind of where I'm coming at it from is as marketers, you know, with my marketing hat on, and as a content producer, what's respectful to my audience? What's going to keep my audience around? It's not can I get away with it. It's is it providing value? It's value and respect. Like I think these are the two things that and you know what I always say value, and now I'm going to probably say value and respect. So I think that's probably my biggest thing out of this, right? And because that's what it's all about, right? If you're and Facebook built an audience in particular because people love the interface. They love what they could do with it. Was it the best interface in the world? Whatever. It was about the community. It was about the connections. About the and I'm with you. You know what? It's your place. You can do what you want, but I think you're better off not doing everything you want. I think you'd agree with that, right?
Yeah, well, well, just to sum up my last point on this. Facebook recognized that, the industry recognizes that. That's the whole point of the data interoperability.
Totally.
So that's supposed to solve all of those issues. It's supposed to solve the issue of, you know what, I want to walk away with my data. It solves the issue of, you know what, I don't want to have to replicate my data across all these sites. And it also basically provides some teeth to enforcing the rights of the individual in the community.
I want to wrap on that. That's a great point. The data interoperability, the ability to walk away, and I think you were saying earlier, like if you can just walk away, if you can vote with your feet, you know, yeah. Right now, that's not as possible in social media as it maybe is in, you know, in flip the channel. if you don't like what you're seeing, right? So I think that, again, I think until that exists, or if you want to keep people in your channel or keep people on your thing, I think it's value and respect. And I think probably, there's a little bit of disagreement here, I think, and that's healthy, but I think everybody agrees. Let's respect the audience, right? So that's really, you've helped me with my problem a little bit. I feel a little healthier after this. So thank you guys, and enjoy the rest of the session.